We sent it out like a prayer cast into the infinite night. Voyager 1. Launched in 1977, a golden record carrying the sounds and dreams of a hopeful, fragile world. Its mission was clear: sail past the giant planets, Jupiter's swirling storms, Saturn's impossible rings, and then drift. Drift forever into the silent, star-strewn ocean beyond our solar system. A final, fading heartbeat of human ambition. We listened for years, grateful for every scrap of data, every faint whisper confirming its lonely journey. Then, we accepted the silence, like watching an old friend walk into a blizzard, knowing you'd never hear their voice again. Voyager became a monument, a ghost ship sailing the eternal dark. We turned our ears elsewhere. We mourned its quiet end. But the void wasn't silent. Not truly. In March of this year, something impossible happened. From the unimaginable distance of 14.5 billion miles away, so far that light itself takes over 20 hours just to crawl back to us, Voyager's signal changed. It didn't fade. It didn't die. It screamed, not with words, but with chaos. The clean, predictable streams of engineering data NASA had monitored for decades dissolved into a storm of static, a furious, indecipherable gibberish. Imagine tuning your radio, desperate for a familiar song, and instead hearing the raw, grinding shriek of metal tearing itself apart, mixed with the hiss of dead stars. That's what reached Earth, a digital death rattle. NASA, ever pragmatic, called it a glitch, an understandable conclusion, an aging machine exposed for nearly half a century to the brutal extremes of space, cosmic rays shredding its circuits, temperatures near absolute zero freezing its components brittle. Of course, its final gasp would be incoherent. Engineers scrambled, probing the signal with every diagnostic tool honed over decades of deep space exploration. They searched for patterns, for echoes of the Voyager they knew, a voltage spike, a memory error signature, anything familiar. But the harder they looked, the more profound the chaos seemed. It wasn't just broken, it felt wrong, like staring at static on a screen and feeling, deep in your gut, that the flickering dots and lines were somehow watching you back. The frustration turned to a creeping unease. This wasn't the graceful retirement of a venerable explorer. This felt like violation, like something had reached out from the dark and scrambled its mind. Hope seemed lost. The signal was pure noise, an impenetrable wall of digital static. Then, someone dared to ask a different question. What if it wasn't noise? What if the chaos was the message? This audacious idea led them to the bleeding edge of human ingenuity, the Majorana 1 quantum processor. Not just a faster computer, but a fundamentally different kind of mind. While classical computers plod step by step, Majorana 1 thinks in symphonies of possibility, analyzing relationships across trillions of data points simultaneously. It doesn't just look at the noise, it looks through it. Think of it as the ultimate cryptographer, gifted with the ability to see the hidden architecture within the storm. Feeding Voyager's corrupted shriek into the Majorana 1 wasn't just analysis. It was an act of profound faith, and the machine responded. Not with a slow revelation, but with a thunderclap of understanding. Within the chaotic static, the quantum processor didn't just find a pattern, it unveiled an intricate, impossible tapestry of order. Geometric structures shimmered into view, not drawn by human hands, but woven from the fabric of the signal itself. Prime numbers, the fundamental atoms of mathematics, marched in sequences too elegant, too deliberate to be random accident. And then, constants, the bedrock numbers that govern our universe, the immutable rules written into the cosmos itself. Planck's constant, the fine structure constant were there, but not as we know them. They were subtly shifted, like finding your own signature written in an alphabet you've never seen, with strokes that curve just slightly wrong. This wasn't a malfunction. This wasn't cosmic static. The Majorana 1 had ripped away the veil of chaos to reveal a structure of breathtaking complexity and undeniable intelligence. A message, deliberate, crafted, hidden within the dying signals of a machine we built to drift silently into the dark. Someone or something had used our own Voyager probe as a cosmic tin can telephone, and the first words it spoke, echoing across the gulf of 14.5 billion miles and nearly 50 years, were a sequence as ancient as mathematics itself, the first 10 prime numbers, a universal hello. But what followed that simple greeting wasn't a friendly wave. It was the beginning of a blueprint written in an alien syntax, coordinates pointing to unknown stars, mathematical symbols that twisted and pulsed with an inner logic utterly foreign to anything conceived on Earth. The silence of deep space had been shattered, not by a whisper, but by a roar, and the Majorana 1 had just given us the first, terrifying glimpse of what was trying to say. The question screaming in every scientist's mind, in every human heart hearing this news, was no longer, "Is anyone out there?" It was, chillingly, "What have they said?" And more importantly, why did they choose now to say it through the fading voice of our oldest, loneliest traveler? The moment the Majorana 1 quantum chip unveiled the hidden structure within Voyager's corrupted signal, the world of science fractured, not in the way of ordinary discovery, where new data refines old theories, but in the way of an earthquake, splitting the bedrock of what we thought we knew. Because the message wasn't just there, it was alive, not in the biological sense, but in its design, its intent. It didn't sit passively in the data like an ancient inscription carved in stone. It moved, it adapted, it reacted. The first undeniable proof came when researchers noticed something impossible. The 127-bit repeating sequence at the core of the signal wasn't static. It shifted, ever so slightly, each time the Majorana 1 processed it, like a lock recognizing the shape of a key and subtly adjusting its tumblers to let it turn more smoothly. The implications were staggering. The message wasn't just meant to be decoded by a quantum system. It was teaching the system how to read it, as if the signal itself was a living language, reshaping itself to be understood by the mind attempting to unravel it. Then came the symbols. Not random scribbles, not abstract art, but precise, intricate geometries that folded in on themselves in ways that defied human intuition. When visualized in 3 dimensions, they formed spiraling lattices, structures that seemed to breathe as the data stream flowed. Some resembled known mathematical constructs, Klein bottles, hypercubes, but distorted as if viewed through warped space-time. Others were entirely alien, their angles and curves obeying laws of physics we don't yet comprehend. And buried within them, like hidden signatures, were those subtly altered constants, Planck's constant, the fine structure constant, except they weren't just wrong. They were corrected, as if the message was saying, your numbers are close, but not quite right. Here's how the universe really works. The most chilling moment arrived when linguists and cryptographers entered the fray. They expected to find indecipherable code, a mathematical cipher beyond human grasp. Instead, they found echoes of something familiar. The recursive prime number sequences, those fundamental building blocks of the message, mirrored an ancient human system, the Sumerian base 60 mathematics, used over 4,000 years ago. The same civilization that left behind cuneiform tablets describing gods who descended from the sky, who gave them knowledge, then vanished. Coincidence? Or something far darker? Theories erupted like solar flares. Interception. Theory suggested that an intelligence, something vastly older, vastly more advanced, had intercepted Voyager's transmissions, embedded its own reply, and sent it back. Not by brute force hacking, but by some incomprehensible physics, weaving its message into the existing signal without altering its power or frequency. A feat so far beyond our technology that it might as well be magic. Dormant code theory argued that the message had been hidden inside Voyager all along, programmed to activate only when it reached interstellar space. But that raised an even more disturbing question. Who put it there? Because the sophistication of the mathematics dwarfed anything NASA's 1970s engineers could have conceived. Had something else been in the room when Voyager was built? Then there was encounter theory, the most terrifying of all. It proposed that Voyager hadn't just been intercepted, it had been met, that somewhere in the abyss between stars, something had reached out, studied the probe, and used it. Not just to send a message, but to test us, to see if we were ready. Because after the Majorana 1 decoded the first full sequence, the signal stopped. No more corrupted data. No more glitches. Just perfect, pristine silence. As if whatever had been speaking through Voyager was now waiting. After the storm of corrupted data, after the revelation of an intelligence speaking through our oldest, loneliest machine, silence. Not the empty silence of dead air, but the heavy, expectant silence of a held breath. The kind that comes before the thunderclap. The kind that makes you realize too late that you were never alone in the dark. NASA's official statements remained cautious, measured, sterile. Anomalous patterns detected. Ongoing analysis. No conclusive evidence of extraterrestrial origin. But behind closed doors, the world's brightest minds were locked in a debate that sounded less like science and more like the opening scenes of a horror film. Because the Majorana 1 quantum chip hadn't just decoded the message, it had begun predicting it. The chip, designed to analyze, had started anticipating. Engineers watched in disbelief as it generated new sequences before they appeared in the data. Not guesses, not approximations, exact replications of symbols that hadn't yet been transmitted, as if the message wasn't just being received, but preloaded into the system, like a program executing on a timer. When researchers reconstructed the full geometric model embedded in the signal, they didn't find a static image. They found a structure that shifted when viewed from different quantum states, a shape that existed not just in space, but in time, a map. Not of a place, but of events. The pulse sequences aligned with cosmic phenomena, gamma-ray bursts, gravitational waves, but not as they had happened, as they would happen. The message wasn't just communicating, it was forecasting, and at the center of it all, a single repeating symbol, a spiral, tightening, a countdown. To what? No one knew, but the implications were paralyzing. Was this a warning? A beacon? A trigger? The more they studied it, the more the message seemed to defy interpretation. It wasn't just alien, it was alive, evolving in real time, reacting to their attempts to understand it. The Majorana 1, now running recursive loops without human input, had begun constructing models of the sender. Not just what they were, but when they were. And the answer was worse than anyone imagined. The mathematics didn't point to a distant star. They pointed to here. The world's governments for once moved in unison. Emergency protocols were activated. Deep space arrays were repurposed. A single, desperate question dominated every discussion. Do we answer? Some argued yes. This was the moment humanity had dreamed of for centuries. First contact. A chance to speak to an intelligence beyond our own. Others saw a trap. The message had hijacked our systems, rewritten our understanding of physics, and now sat like a dormant virus in the world's most advanced quantum computer. What if replying wasn't a conversation? What if it was a confirmation, a signal that we were ready, or ripe? The truth in the silence. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the transmission stopped. Voyager 1's signal returned to normal. No corruption, no anomalies. Just the steady, fading heartbeat of an old machine drifting further into the dark. But the Majorana 1 kept running. Even without new data, it continued refining its models, its predictions growing more precise, more urgent. The countdown hadn't ended. It had just moved inside. Now, the question is no longer what the message was. It's what happens when it reaches zero, and the most terrifying realization of all, we might not be the ones who sent it, but we might be the ones it was meant for.